There's a little piece about slide guitar. You might remember this guitar from the previous episode where I was fixing it and doing something to the nut there. Always loved the sound of this guitar. Anyway, slide guitar is obviously its own thing, but it leads you onto the slippery slope of lap steel, dobro, and eventually, if you've got the nerve, pedal steel. A lot of the disciplines are the same. The most important of which, of course, is the slide itself. The discipline of the slide is really, really hard to begin with. It gets natural after a while, but practice, practice, practice. The best way I always found to practice when I was starting out was sitting down with an electric guitar not plugged in and wailing away, so nobody else could hear it but me, which is a good thing. Like many of the real emotional disciplines, arts, confidence in your performance is such an important thing, and until you can develop the confidence, you won't hit the note. Singing is exactly the same thing. I mean, this is singing in a way. It's kind of like singing. There's a lot in common. No frets. You know what I mean? The slide has to be over the fret. Whatever fret you're aiming at, it has to be over it to get the exact note. That's a mathematical certainty. It's exactly the same thing as harmonics. Same note. So you've got to hit the note. You'll hear that over and over again with slide guitar. You're hitting the note. The slide has to be level to get all the strings in tune at once, over the fret. It also has to be level on the other plane so that you don't hit the guitar. It's got to be horizontal. And the other thing, most of the time you need to be deadening the strings behind the slide. So your fingers are on there. The fingers are there. And the slide is there. The fingers are not pushing down, but deadening the strings behind the slide. Also, the rule of thumb is that your slide should always be moving to a tiny degree. That way you're getting that kind of vibrato. Not as much as that, but always moving. Tunings. As I said in that previous episode, this guitar is tuned to open D. D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. I tune it to D rather than E because of tensions. This particular guitar is old and somewhat dishevelled. And of course, if you tune the whole guitar up to E, there's more tension on the neck. So the whole thing goes out. But I find D is a lot better. For me. More tension might work for you, I don't know. The other most common tuning is G, which would be D again. G, D, G, B, D. The two tunings work pretty much the same way, only a string across, if you know what I mean. That shape there would be the same there in the G tuning. I'm holding down the fifth string and the third string there. But if it was a G tuning, I'd be holding down the fourth and the second. So the whole thing moves down. Tunings is a vast, vast subject which we'll get into another day. There are so many different tunings and they're so useful. I love this open tuning. I love the straight D open tuning. So many things, so many Neil Young tricks. There's a really easy trick towards playing bits of tunes and stuff, or improvising, or whatever you want to do on the slide. Because of the fact that you're tuned to an open chord, the next note is always predictable. Also, you're running in the blues scale, which is... So if you're playing in D, the next note you're going to want to be is going to be on the 3rd fret. Then the 5th, then the 7th, then the 10th, and then back to the 12th. If you improvise around those, you're going to be all right. There's one exception to that, which is on the 3rd string, the F sharp. You'll find that because of the nature of the scale, you'll want to be flattening that 3rd. It's a 3rd. You want to be going, instead of going, you want to go. So you hit the 3rd note on the 11th fret rather than on the 12th. Which slide you use is entirely up to you. There are so many. This, can you see that? This is a Cooder bottle, or a replica thereof, as used by the great DUANE ALLMAN, of whom more in a minute. And he just, his cough syrup or some kind of thing, and he found it one day and went, oh, I wonder if that would fit on my finger. And it did, and he used it ever since, till his untimely demise. That's obviously Pyrex. This is another Pyrex one, which is just a straight slide. I find this just a little bit too long for me. Bit awkward, but you could fit it over your 4th finger if you wanted to play. If you wanted to play with the 4th, probably a bit too long for that too. Again, that's another minefield. The 3rd finger, the 2nd finger, some people do. I find the 3rd finger is a good solution to the problem. You need 2 fingers to be able to play chords amongst your stuff, so you can go. Thing. Also, you can get metal slides. Brass, this is much heavier sound. Again, depends what you want to do with it. Depends whether you're playing an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar. Slide on the electric guitar is a whole other thing again. And people say, what kind of guitar? Should it be a Fender or should it be a Gibson? I say Gibson, 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 Gibson. Don't know why, just they just have the sound. I don't know why it works, but it does. Strats in particular, to me, just that's not the sound I'm after. You may be after that sound, I'm not. But the sound is the important thing. I'm not getting a great sound today with this because various reasons. One, it's 10 o'clock in the morning and it's a damp, miserable day here. My back hurts and I'm not warmed up properly, and you have to be warmed up to play good slide. You've got to warm yourself up. Any kind of slide, whether it's the pedal steel or dobro or whatever, you've got to be hot because you've got to be hitting that note. Finally, people always ask me which guitar players should I be listening to when I'm learning to play slide. First, start at the beginning. Elmore James, classic. He would have written that. I need say no more. Lowell George, the great Lowell George of Little Feat fame. Listen to everything he ever did on the side. He's master. Although he did tend to play Strat sometimes. There you go. Cooder. At his peak. He's getting on a bit now, but at his peak, boy, he could play. And then above them all, the one and only DUANE Allman. There is no other slide guitar player. Start, middle and end. DUANE Allman. Listen to DUANE Allman. A couple of things I wanted to say about that before we moved on. First thing is I was playing with my fingers throughout that. I like playing with my fingers on slide. You don't have to. You can play with thumb pick, you can play with thumb pick and finger picks, you can play with an ordinary pick, you can do what you like. It's up to you. And the second thing is to re-cement the argument that I made at the very beginning of these talks, which is that I'm not an expert on any of these things. I'm not a great slide guitar player by any stretch of the imagination. What I can do is make that noise. So with a bit of help, technically and other ways, I can get the sound I want on a record. And on a good day, I can get the sound I want on a live performance too. But expert, me, no. There are people that are. Go find them. See ya.